TJ? Honey, it's time to get up for school. TJ!
Alright. Alright, I heard you.
Your breakfast is on the table, and don't forget your father will be working late
Mama,
tonight, so...
I know. Please get out and shut the door. Today being the first day of my senior year is crazy. Feels like just yesterday I was going through freshman orientation. But luckily, since I got just about all my credits, I'm only gonna have 3 classes, so today should go by pretty smooth. There's a lot riding on my success both on the field and in the classroom this year. I've received offers from several programs all across the board, but I know once I get my 5th star, that list gonna get even longer. Right now, they got me ranked as the 27th quarterback in my class, but I know whoever made that list must not watch football because it ain't no way it's 26 quarterbacks better than me. After class, I'll probably come back here to the crib to get some rest before practice. Our first game is like 8 days away, so tonight's practice should just be a walkthrough, but I still want to make sure I'm locked in. I don't know about y'all, but I hate having my most important class first thing in the morning. It seems to happen like this every year, but I really got to lock in this time because I'm terrible at math, but I need this Algebra 1 credit if I'm going to play ball next year. Look, I know y'all ain't trying to sit through no math class with me, so I'm just going to fill you in on my childhood until I get finished. Man, my childhood was lovely. Growing up as an only kid certainly has its disadvantages, but it also comes with its perks as well. Anything I ever wanted, I got, and then some. See, my mom is everything I could ever ask for. Loving, caring, understanding. I mean, she's quite literally just perfect. Even though she be getting on my nerves sometimes, there's nothing I'd ever change about that woman. Now my pops, see, that's really my best friend. As a kid, I didn't look up to Superman or Batman. No, my dad was my superhero. He taught me everything I know about being a man, and he showed me that it's okay to have self-confidence and believe in yourself. See, my dad really built his real estate empire from nothing. When my grandparents died, they left him their house. Well, he was able to leverage that property to buy another house, and then another house, and then another house. Then eventually he made the transition to purchasing commercial properties, and well, the rest is history. Look, I'll be the first to admit that I grew up spoiled, and honestly, I'm not ashamed of it. My parents worked extremely hard to make sure I never wanted for anything. I mean, they've had me laced in designer since I came out the womb. But look, don't get it twisted. Just because I grew up privileged doesn't mean I don't have a crazy work ethic. Yet my pops has had me training like a pro my whole life. Football camps, personal trainers, nutritionists, track coaches, you name it, I've had it. I've been putting in all the work that's needed to be successful, so that's why I can confidently say that there's no way I don't make it to the league. Man, bro, algebra is so dumb. I mean, honestly, when am I ever going to use any of that information in the real world? It's only the first day of school and I already got a headache. On top of that, my next class is biology, and then I got to go sit through US History 1. Man, I'll tap back in with y'all before practice tonight. IMG Academy. This is where my high school football journey really began. Now, if you're not familiar with IMG, allow me to give you a little bit of a background. It's one of the most prestigious sports, performance, and educational institutions in the whole world, and they produce several professional athletes. I went here my freshman and sophomore year of high school. Now, this is a boarding school, so that means you actually stay on campus just like you would at a college. Bro, I still remember the day my mom and pops dropped me off. I was so excited, I thought it was finna be like the movies. You know, with the girls and the parties, but bro, it was the complete opposite. All we did was go to school and train. I mean, like, we literally didn't have any time to do anything else. But I can honestly say that I became a much better player while I was there. Everything was state of the art. They even brought in sports scientists to create individual training programs for each athlete. I mean, everything was going great off the field, but on the field is where we had issues. I never got to play, which is the complete opposite of what the coaches told me would happen when I agreed to come here. Yeah, they promised I'd have a chance to compete for the starting spot, but I honestly don't feel like I was ever given that opportunity. I became a certified backup. The only time I saw the field was at practice, which was crazy because the starting quarterback definitely wasn't better than me my freshman or sophomore year. After just 2 seasons spent at IMG Academy, I was gone. My next stop would be at some trash school that I'm not even gonna bother mentioning. I only appeared in 5 games for them bums because the coach and I kept butting heads. I did my thing and we ended up winning 4 out of the 5 games that I played in, but the coach there was hating on me. Yeah, he didn't want to see me be great. He kept trying to humble me and tell me that I wasn't bigger than the team, but what he didn't understand was without me, they wasn't gonna win. I had to tell him like, bro, we gonna do things my way or I'm just not gonna play. And well, yeah, I ended up getting kicked off the team, but it is what it is. I spent the remainder of last year and all of last summer playing in several flag football tournaments all across the state of Florida. I put on an absolute clinic in those tournaments, and I honestly believe I showed that I'm the most skillful quarterback in this year's class. I know there's still a little bit of doubt surrounding my name, and that's okay, because I plan on using this year to make it abundantly clear that I'm the best quarterback in the nation. Man, bro, that nap after class was much needed. I feel like a brand new person. Now I'm ready to go throw some darts over the top of the defense. But look, normally coach would never allow cameras to be at practice, but I told him I'm doing this little day in a life vlog for y'all, so he agreed to give you a quick sneak peek. Plus, this would give me the chance to introduce y'all to some of the weapons on the team. I'm telling y'all, man, we got some dogs. So we just finished up a pretty tough practice. I can't lie, I'm extremely exhausted, but I was able to convince a few of the guys to stay after for a few extra reps. So look, we just gonna work through the passing tree while I introduce you to a few of the receivers. First, we got my guy Jeremy Smith. So right now he's currently uncommitted, but he has a few JUCO offers, but I hope by the end of the year we can change that. Next, we got my boy Bryce Brown. He's actually uncommitted right now as well, but he has more D1 offers than everybody on the team, so he can really go wherever he wants to. I mean, dude is a dog, he's a speedster, good hands, really the total package. Next up is my guy DG. Now, he's really my closest friend on the team. As of right now, he doesn't have any offers, but I know that's going to change because he's quickly become my favorite target. Then we got my boy Torian. Now, as you can see, he's fully committed to go play at Washington, but I think he's going to change his mind as more offers come in. Right now, he's just a junior, so he's still got a little bit of time left. Last but certainly not least, my boy B. Jones. Definitely the best offensive weapon we have other than myself. He's fully committed to go play at Michigan next year. Our first game of the season came against our crosstown rivals, Westminster Academy. Last year, they were able to pull off a very tough victory in a game that went into a double overtime. Now, I'll admit, I feel like we had the better team last year, so I can't take anything away from their performance. But this year, yeah, it was a totally different story. It wasn't no way I was going to end my high school football career losing to our rivals. The hatred between the two schools runs deep. Now, even though we're both expensive private schools, we look at them as ghetto with no class, and they look at us as spoiled rich kids that never had to work for anything. But forget all that. Myself and the team came out very sharp and played a nearly perfect game to secure the victory in our season opener. I went 10 for 19 on nearly 300 passing yards. But listen, since I play for a smaller 4A division school, it's going to be harder for me to get my 5th star since our competition isn't as good as some of the larger schools, but hey, it is what it is. Our next opponent was Rivalry Christian Academy, back at home. Now, this is a team that you cannot lose to. I mean, they haven't had a winning program since the late 80s, so normally whenever we play them, coach tries to incorporate new plays and schemes for us to try out during the game. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm a dual threat quarterback. That means I could beat you off through the air or on the ground. I like to compare my game of that of Tom Brady mixed with Patty Mahomes with the hint of Lamar Jackson, but I know for sure I'm going to be better than all three of them, so in the future, kids going to be comparing their game to mine. Midway through the third quarter, we had a very comfortable lead, but the pressure from the Rivalry Christian defensive end caused me to throw my first interception of the season. Now, a blind man would be able to see that that definitely wasn't my fault. Had my O-line held their blocks a little longer and my receiver stuck to his route, that never would have happened. We went on to close out the game pretty easily, just like everyone expected. I had a great day on the ground, finishing with over 200 rushing yards, and I did my thing through the air as well, securing 2 passing touchdowns. Coral Springs would be our first road game of the season, and surprisingly, this turned into a shootout. It was weird because they didn't have anyone on their defense that was really talented or even really good. It was just like everyone was extremely disciplined. I found myself having to go through every read and look off defenders just to pick up 5 and 10 yard gains. Everyone stayed at home in their zone, so I wasn't able to rely on my athleticism to make plays, so that made things challenging. But if I'm being honest, I love games like that because I'm forced to think. Tie game, only a few seconds left until the end of regulation. I drop back in the pocket, scanning the field, then I would eventually throw up nothing short of a Hail Mary, only for my guy AD to come down with an insane head-tapping catch in the end zone, giving us the walk-off victory on the road. 3-0 coming off a nail-biting victory the week before, we'd be back on the road to take on Bishop Stevens High School. Now, since our games were being televised on ESPNU, thousands of people saw the performance I put on versus Coral Springs, and I finally started to get the buzz I should have gotten a long time ago. Like I mentioned before, since I go to a smaller private school, people tend to overlook us, so that means I have to work twice as hard as everybody else to only get half the results. But I was taught if you complain, you stay the same, so I decided to just make the best of my situation. But look, this definitely wasn't my best game, as I threw 2 back-to-back interceptions right into the hands of the defense. But again, Neither of these were my fault. On both interceptions, my receivers ran lazy routes and no one else was open, so I really had no choice but to make the pass. On our final offensive drive of the game, I was able to improvise on several plays to move the ball down the field right outside the end zone. Well, that's where I would eventually call my own number and scramble into the end zone for a touchdown, increasing our lead and keeping our undefeated streak alive. Off to a very hot start, our next matchup will be against the Dillard High Panthers. Now, this team is always pretty solid, so I remember in the weeks leading up to the game, everybody was locked in. Not only that, but I heard they had some all-star defensive line that had 3 players committing to go play at Power 5 schools. Now, of course, me personally, I didn't care, but I did know that there was a chance that maybe my offensive line could have trouble keeping them contained. But to my surprise, the big guys up front held their blocks extremely well, and they gave me a clean pocket to pass out of. We were very dominant on the ground and of course through the air. I felt like this was my coming out party because I played a relatively perfect game. No sacks, no interceptions. Like, I was really in my bag, and this was much needed considering the last game I didn't play so well. There were a few scouts in the stands from smaller schools that I wasn't interested in. A few of them tried to talk to me after the game, but like, come on bro, I ain't got time for all that. Besides, who the hell wants to go play for the University of Alabama at Birmingham? I mean, what the hell is even that? Anyways, we took yet another victory at home to improve our record to 5-0 with only one more game before the playoffs. The last regular season game of my high school career took place on our home field versus Northeast High. Believe it or not, my coach wanted me to rest this game so I'd be fresh for the playoffs, but it wasn't no way I was going to allow that to happen. But listen, this team actually ended up having the best defense we faced all year. I spent the majority of the game running for my life just trying to get off a clean pass. I think I took like 4 back shots that night from the defense, which was the most I'd taken all season. We had trouble getting our running game going early on, and our passing game wasn't doing much either. Luckily, our defense came to the rescue and forced them to settle for field goals on 3 straight drives. I was able to find the end zone with about 2 minutes left in the first half, but that's when I took a late hit by the Northeast safety, which honestly pissed me off. Unfortunately, I allowed that anger to take over and I forced the ball into coverage, leading to an interception, but even still, that wasn't really my fault because my receiver should have just caught the ball. Nonetheless, we beat them boys 17-12 and officially closed out an undefeated regular season. At the end of the regular season, I was still rated as a 4-star quarterback, but that was completely fine. See, I knew since the competition at these private schools isn't that deep, the analysts were just waiting until the state playoffs to see how I performed against tougher competition before passing out that 5th star. I have 4 games left to show my haters, my doubters, the scouts, the analysts, everybody that I'm really that dude. The moment I had been waiting all year for. The Florida 4A playoffs was finally here, and it was time for me to take stage. Now, as I mentioned, I finished the regular season as a 4-star athlete, but I knew all the scouts and analysts would have their eyes on these playoff games, so it was very important I put on a good performance. I started off playing extremely aggressive. Yeah, I wanted to send a message early on that I was with all the smoke. I drove the ball 60 yards up the field and eventually scored a 15-yard touchdown off of a quarterback keeper. Just as I was reaching into my bag, tragedy struck as I would take a huge blindsided hit from the defense that caused my head to bounce off the ground extremely hard, resulting in a concussion. Just like that, my high school career was officially over. We went on to lose in the first round of the playoffs after having a tremendous undefeated season. I never thought things would have ended that way, and to make matters worse, I never got my 5th star. Analysts felt the competition I faced during the regular season just wasn't good enough to justify me being a 5-star athlete. After training like crazy for the past few months, the spring game is finally here. The fight for QB1 has been close all camp, but that's only because I'm a freshman. Yeah, y'all know how it gets when politics are involved, but my play today is going to set me apart from everybody else. But look, I'm headed over to the cafe right now to grab a quick snack before the game. While I do that, let me bring y'all up to date with everything that's happened since last episode. After suffering an early exit from the state playoffs last episode, I had to switch my focus and get my mindset for the next chapter of my football career. See, at that time I was still uncommitted and I hadn't taken a single college visit, but that's because my mind was already set on where I was going. I took the rest of my senior year off from football and really just focused on being a kid. You know, partying, hooping, fishing, really just enjoying life because I knew as soon as it was time to leave for college, playtime would be over and the hard work would really start. Oregon University. Yeah, I've known I was going to be an Oregon Duck since I was a kid. My pops actually got his master's degree from Oregon and my grandfather did as well. So I guess you can say it's always been a part of the family. National Signing Day came and I made my official announcement and let the world know I was headed to play for the Ducks. Moving out of the crib was tough. Not for me, but for my parents. Yeah, they were sad to see their baby boy go, but I wasn't sad at all. Yeah, it was finally time for me to go take over college football. My parents drove my M8 and the U-Haul from Florida to Oregon. Meanwhile, I took a first-class flight there, that way I wouldn't be cranky or sore from the long drive. The first thing I did when I got on campus was request a meeting with Coach Lanning and the OC. Yeah, I had to let them know that I was ready to lead this offense and put the team in position to win the championship this year. Man, Coach, I'm so happy to be here right now and I'm excited to get to work. I just wanted to touch base with you and maybe go over a few different schemes that I think you should consider adding to the offense. I think if we make a few minor changes that'll better fit my play style, we'll have a better chance of getting to the playoffs and potentially winning a title. Alright, so yeah, maybe I went by the coach's office a little too soon. I mean, I hadn't thrown a single pass against a Division I defense or taken a single snap from under center as a college athlete, yet I was already in the front office requesting changes. Yeah, I can admit I was tripping, but all that did was put an even bigger chip on my shoulder. For the first month or so, all we did was strength and conditioning training. Then it was finally time to put on the pads so I could show them what I could do. The first week or so, I'll admit I made quite a few mental errors, but that was expected. It took me a little bit of time to build some chemistry with the wideouts and learn the playbook. So a lot of my passes were either underthrown or thrown right into coverage. Once I got comfortable though, things began to change and I started making plays. It seems like everything began to slow down for me and I was really having my way. The main difference I noticed between high school football and college football is the speed. I mean, everything is like 5 times faster. With Bo Nix leaving for the NFL draft, that left a huge opening at the quarterback position. Well, that opening attracted 2 huge transfers. Former UCF and OU quarterback Dylan Gabriel and also former UCLA quarterback Dante Moore. Now, initially at the beginning of camp, judging by the number of reps each of us got, it looked like Dylan would be QB1, Dante would be QB2, and then yours truly was at QB3. But now, I'm pretty sure I moved into that QB2 slot. So we have about an hour left until kickoff. Now, I believe Dylan and Dante will be splitting reps in the first half, then I should have the second half to myself, but I could be wrong. Regardless though, no matter how much time I'm out there, I already know I'm gonna make plays. I just need everybody else around me to do their job. There's a lot riding on my performance in this spring game, as this may very well be the last chance I have to show just how much better I am than every other quarterback on the roster. Going into the spring game, I promised myself to have total confidence in my team. I know normally I can tend to not want to take risks because of uncertainty that they'll be able to catch the ball and complete the play, but I changed my mindset for this game, and early on that newfound confidence in my team proved to be very beneficial as I was able to connect on a 40-yard bomb over the top of the defense for my first touchdown. But look, let me be honest, Dylan and Dante played a decent game, but to me they both seemed timid and scared to let the ball fly. Meanwhile, I came out guns blazing. I not only scored on the team's opening drive, but I was able to find the end zone on the second one as well. Our third drive started off with a big run up the middle. I used my speed and vision to ram the ball up the backside of the defense, and I picked up about 30 yards. I was feeling extremely confident, and I know for a fact the coaches and the fans had to be impressed with my performance because, I mean, come on now, I was picking them boys apart. I remember thinking like nothing could go wrong at that point, and I had actually fully embraced having confidence in my team. Well, that was until the O-line didn't hold their blocks, which forced me to throw an ill-advised pass in triple coverage. I was pissed and I felt stupid for even depending on them to do their job. I knew better than that, and I also knew I had to make up for that interception, so I started to call my own number. I was able to get us down right outside the red zone and ended up throwing another interception because another one of my teammates couldn't make the play. 2 interceptions in 1 quarter is crazy. By the time the 4th quarter started, I had lost all confidence in my teammates. See, I didn't want to risk throwing a 3rd pick, so I did everything I could to keep the ball on the ground. As a quarterback, when things go right, you get all the credit, but on the flip side, when things go wrong, you get that same credit as well. Even if it wasn't your fault, it's still your fault. We had about 2.5 minutes left in the game, and I honestly felt like at that point, I had blown my chance to secure the starting spot. Even though the other 2 quarterbacks on the team didn't play as exciting as I did, they didn't turn over the ball, and honestly, we all know that's what really matters. In my final drive of the spring game, I played pretty well and was able to move the ball up the field to score a touchdown. Now, this was technically my first college game, so I truly feel like I did my thing. I mean, I showed confidence and composure in the pocket, and I also showed that I'm a weapon on the ground as well. Now, if I had to grade my performance alone, I'd definitely say I put on an A+ performance. So as y'all can see, I'm back here in Florida at my parents' crib. Yeah, they gave us a week and a half off for spring break, so I caught a flight back home, but honestly, I'm not sure if I'm even going back. Shortly after the spring game, I sat down with Coach Lanning and I asked him to keep it real with me. Yeah, I asked him straight up, like, who's going to be the starting quarterback for the season? And he told me, Dylan is his guy, and then behind him is Dante. Now, y'all should know damn well I'm not about to be no third string quarterback, especially not for them two bum ass dudes, so I just been thinking, weighing out all my options. Alright, so look, obviously I can go to pretty much any school in the nation I want to. Now, some schools I'll be coming in as a starter. Meanwhile, there's other schools that'll probably have me compete and work my way up to QB number 1. Now, of course, I could just stay put at Oregon, but with QB 1 and 2 already being set, that means it's almost certain that I won't be playing this year. But if I do go ahead and jump into the portal and go to another school, that would give me a fresh start. So even if I came in at QB 2, there's still an opportunity for me to play. Now, I've been weighing out my options with my parents, and of course they like to see me stay put in Oregon, but they'd also like to see me play, so they totally support me transferring. Now, if I'm being honest, I haven't told nobody this, but I've been thinking about coming back and playing at home. Maybe I go to Florida or Florida State, and then of course Miami's always an option as well. So look, since we're family, I'd love to hear what y'all think. Should I redshirt and sit a year at Oregon and hope that maybe next year I'll be starting, or should I test out my luck in the transfer portal? Do your boy a favor and comment down below what my next move should be. Until then, I'm on to the next one. I'm here outside at Coach Norvell's office for an emergency meeting. We had a game last night versus Clemson, and I mean, everything went well. I got in late because DJ went down with the injury, but I mean, I didn't turn the ball over or anything like that, so I'm honestly not sure what this could be about.
So, as you know, DJ went down with an injury in last night's game.
Yeah.
Well, we just got word back that it's more serious than we thought, and he'll likely be out for several weeks. So that makes you the next man up. Now, I don't want you to let this go to your head, okay? Just keep doing what you've been doing, and everything will be fine. But remember, the standard is the standard. And if at any moment myself or your coaches feel you're not playing up to the standard, we'll have to pull the plug, okay?
Okay, I got you, Coach. Man, y'all should already know I'm excited as hell. It's finally time for me to shine. I said I'm the best quarterback in college football all along. Now I finally get a chance to prove it. Yeah, it is sad that DJ got hurt, but if him getting hurt is what had to happen for me to get my shot, then so be it.
Wow, honey, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. Oh, is DJ gonna be okay?
Mama, I don't care about DJ. As a matter of fact, where's Dad at? Can you please put him on the phone?
Hold on. I'm gonna pass the phone to your father.
It's so crazy how quick your life can change. Just a few weeks ago, I was a third string quarterback at Oregon with no real chance of playing this year. As a matter of fact, man, Coach Lanning said I should probably redshirt. Look at me now. I'm here at Florida State about to start my first game. Man, I know y'all probably got a lot of questions on how this even happened. So let me take a second and bring everybody up to date. I spent the majority of spring break in my parents' crib, really just weighing out all my options. First, I had to decide if I was going to enter the transfer portal or just redshirt this year and stay at Oregon. Well, that decision was pretty easy to make. It wasn't no way I was redshirting, so I went ahead and jumped in the portal. I just knew as soon as word spread that I was in the portal, my phone would be ringing non-stop. But for some reason, the first few days nobody called. But then a few calls started to trickle in, but it was mainly from smaller schools I wasn't interested in, like UAB and LA Tech. I spent the next few days just relaxing and enjoying my spring break. But then I started to get a little bit concerned after the first week because nobody was reaching out. But that's when it hit me. They probably just didn't have my number. So I started reaching out to coaches at Power 5 schools all across the country. You know, Texas, LSU, Alabama, Michigan, the big schools. I knew each of those schools would be blessed to have me on their roster, but they didn't seem too interested. But I also knew that's only because they already had their quarterback position filled. I made call after call to these universities, but I had no success. I'll be honest, I felt lost and somewhat embarrassed. I mean, I was officially stranded in the portal. Well, that's when I reached out to my pops for some advice on what I should do next.
Look, son, now I know you feel like you're the best player in the nation, and I don't doubt that one bit at all. But the problem is no one else outside this house believes you. I was reading the comments on your latest YouTube video, and I seen that you had a lot of doubters. And, you know, and the only way to turn them doubters into believers is to show them. But that may mean starting from the bottom and working your way up. So, with that being said, I think you should consider joining the roster as a second option. And when given a chance to compete for that starting spot, man, you take what's yours. So, I mean, I think you should reach out to Florida State. I mean, the quarterback is leaving for the pros, so not only is that a wide open spot for you, but you'll also be right at home.
My pops was right. I really am the greatest football player to ever live, but no one else knows that, and it's my job to show them. I took the next few days to get some rest because I knew as soon as spring break was over, my mission to be recognized as the GOAT would start. I was still in pretty good shape from spring training at Oregon, but over the break, I didn't train at all and I had started to develop a gut. So I decided to jumpstart things a bit before reporting to FSU with 2-a-day training. Yeah, so every day I wake up and do morning runs and then evening weight training, just to get my wind back. When I first got to FSU, there wasn't a huge media buzz surrounding my name. When the other guys would get interviewed, it would be 20 or 30 reporters gathered around, but for me, it was only like 1 or 2. I knew I needed to change that, so when a reporter asked how camp was going, I decided to shake things up a little bit. I mean, camp is going pretty good. Well, for me at least. Now, I can't say the same about the other quarterbacks on the team, but that's for them to figure out. Just know when the season opener comes, I'll be more than ready. As expected, Coach Norvell was pissed, but I didn't care. That one media soundbite got all of college football talking about me, which is exactly what I had planned to happen. This was officially my team now. Everyone else just didn't know. As camp began to wrap up, I was still taking second team snaps, but I was totally fine with that. I took my dad's advice and changed my mindset and my perspective. I knew eventually I'd get my shot at QB1, and when I do, I'd never give it back. To kick off the season, Coach had DJ Ooey Gooey starting, and again, I was totally fine with that. See, I knew eventually I would get my chance to put my hands under the center's balls, so I just told myself to stay patient. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm still that guy. Yeah, I don't want y'all thinking I got humbled or anything like that. Now, I just realized that sometimes in order to get in, you gotta fit in. So for the first 4 games of the season, I was on placeholder duty. And to be honest, the job is pretty difficult. I mean, it's a lot of technique that goes into it. From the outside looking in, it looks super easy, but honestly, it's really not. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, I would finally get my chance in the backfield at quarterback our last game versus Clemson. DJ went down with his injury, so my number was called to go out and close the game. Ironically, this was our first big test of the season, so it couldn't have happened at a better time. We had a small 3-point lead with just over 4 minutes left when I took the field. So of course, coach wanted me to go out and just protect the ball and manage the clock, but I had other plans. Yeah, I wanted to attack the defense and try to put more points on the board. And I did just that. I went on to throw my first official collegiate touchdown to close out the game versus one of our biggest rivals on the road. Now that your boy gonna be starting, I know all the cameras gonna be on me, so I think it's time I go get some new drip. Now my off the field drip is already top tier. Yeah, y'all see it, but my on the field drip can use a bit of an upgrade. So let's head over to the equipment room to see what we can find before we hit the field. Alright, so look, I'm here in the equipment room and I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of the drip for my game today. Now, of course, I'll make changes throughout the season, depending on if we're playing at home or on the road. But for my first game as a starter, this is the look. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so up top, I went with the Speed Flex 2 bar. I know oftentimes you may see a lot of receivers wearing this helmet, but it's the perfect fit for me. Of course, I also had to throw on the pitch black Oakley visor and the neon green mouthpiece. Nothing too crazy. Now, I did decide to go with the rolled up jersey as well for obvious reasons. I mean, come on, I look like a Greek god. Anyways, I also put on the battle backplate for solely aesthetic purposes. I mean, I don't plan on being on my back at all this season. Now, finally, for the most important part, the shoes. I was really thinking about going with the Kobe's for this game, but after careful consideration, I think I'll save those for a later date. Instead, I went with the Jordan 4s. You look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you'll play good. And if you play good, come on, man, y'all know they pay good. Well, I'm feeling great, and I know I look even better. So like I said, this is the drip for today's game. So y'all do me a favor and give me a rating out of 1 through 10 down below. I think I look like an absolute superstar, but I'm excited to see what y'all think. Anyways, enough of all that. Let's go ahead and hit the field. My first game as a starter came on the road versus our arch rivals, Florida University. Now that's an insane amount of pressure to put on the shoulders of a freshman quarterback, but I knew if anyone could handle the pressure of the D, it was me. Now I can't lie, I did come out pretty rusty, but I mean, come on now, that's expected. But it wouldn't take me very long to find my bearings. On our second drive down the field, I connected with my guy Keon for a huge 70-yard touchdown. My mission to be acknowledged as the greatest ever was officially underway. Florida went down and struck back immediately with a touchdown and a field goal, giving them a 3-point lead. I took the field with just over 2 minutes left in the first half. Now, we work on our 2-minute offense every day at the end of practice, so this scenario was nothing new to me. I stayed calm and composed and was able to move the ball up the field, throwing a touchdown and giving us a lead going into the second half. I came out just as aggressive in the third quarter. I had all the confidence in the world and it was showing through my comfort in the pocket. Well, just as I started to really settle in, that comfort was snatched away as my tight end forced me to throw an interception, putting the ball right back into the hands of the Florida offense. Now, luckily, we were able to hold them to only a field goal and we got the ball back to start the fourth quarter. Even though he made me throw that interception on the drive before, I went right back to my tight end for a huge reception, putting us right outside the end zone. That's when I decided to call my own number and scramble into the end zone, giving us the lead again with just over 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Gators refused to bend over and they went down to score back-to-back touchdowns, giving them the 8-point lead. Now, we may have been down, but we definitely wasn't out. This is the moment I had always dreamed of. With our backs pinned against the mattress, we got an extremely clutch pass interference call, which moved the ball right outside the red zone to the 18-yard line. With 30 seconds left, I had no choice but to scramble outside the pocket to pick up the first down. But excellent blocking on the outside allowed me to take the ball in for the touchdown, bringing us to within 2 points. The defense sent the blitz on a 2-point conversion, which left me no choice but to scramble and throw up a Hail Mary, which fell flat in the end zone, ultimately resulted in us losing the game to our rivals on the road by only 2 points. Next, we be at home versus Auburn, and y'all boys know we don't lose at home. I came out focused and ready to play. Even though the last game versus Florida ended in a loss, it still did a lot for me. Yeah, it was like a confirmation that I really am who I say I am. The first drive down the field, we were able to move the ball with ease. Even though I knew I was the best pocket passer in the nation, I also knew I'd have to be mobile at times to beat the defense. In only 5 big plays, I was able to get us right outside the end zone where I'd find my tight end on a flat route for 6. Our defense went out there and fought hard to get the 3 and out, putting the ball right back into our hands. I was fired up and ready to go take a 14-0 lead, but once again, my damn receiver was out of position, causing me to throw an interception. We walked through each of these routes pregame, but it's like as soon as we step on the field, they want to run the route a few yards deeper. It really pisses me off because I'm always the one to blame for their mess ups. If they would just listen to me, none of this would happen. I don't know what was going on with my receivers this game. It's like we were all out of sync, almost like we had never played together before. Like on this play right here, I have my tight end wide open, but for some reason, he decides to break off his route and run upfield. Like, bro, what are you even doing? I had thrown 2 interceptions in just the first half, but a blind man can see that none of them were my fault. I was making the same reads that I would normally make in practice, but for some reason today, everybody decided to go off script. Like this play right here, I have my guy wide open, but he decided to just, man, look, it was his fault, bruh, but yet again, I look bad. 3 interceptions is crazy and coach has seen enough. This was my last play of the game as we went on to lose and I was benched for the entire second half. The next day after the game, I went straight to the coach's office demanding answers. Yeah, I wanted to know why I was benched. I mean, none of those interceptions were even my fault. He kept trying to tell me that I lacked accountability and a whole bunch of other crap I wasn't trying to hear. Man, I ended up being benched for the biggest game of the season, Florida State versus Alabama. But look though, my backup played horrible and we got our heinies beat. With DJ still being sidelined with that season-ending injury and my backup playing worse than I did, after just 1 game, I was back in the starting lineup. My first game back as a starter, we'd be taking on Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. Even though both teams had suffered several losses this season, it was still a very important game for me personally because I'll be going head-to-head with this year's expected first-round pick, Shedeur Sanders. Now, my mindset was different coming into this game because I had already been benched, so I felt like I didn't have anything to lose. That mindset allowed me to play completely carefree. Also, not only would I be competing against Shedeur, but Shiloh Sanders and Travis Hunter were on the defensive side of the ball as well. All eyes would be on those guys, so naturally, that meant all eyes on me. Coach stressed the importance of establishing a run game. He believed that if we stroked the D by running the ball early and often, eventually they would begin to send the blitz, and then that would leave a huge opening in the secondary. Well, that's exactly what happened. I connected several times for huge gains stemming from play action plays. Then by the time they dropped back into the zone coverage, we start killing them again on the ground. It was the perfect 1-2 punch. This was hands down my best game of the season, as it was here that I truly began to grow comfortable scrambling and running with the ball. See, I've always seen myself as like a pocket passer, but over the course of the season, I think I grew into a bit of a dual threat quarterback. You know, like Steve Young and Randall Cunningham, but Of course, I'm a lot better than those guys. Anyways, we went on to beat the sleeves off the Buffaloes, and the game was never really close at any point. I knew I had secured my starting spot with my play in that game, but if I'm being honest, I still had a big chip on my shoulder for even being benched in the first place. Our biggest rival was right in front of us, but unfortunately, we'd be right back to our old ways. We were hosting Clemson at the crib in front of a sold-out stadium, but my first pass of the game was intercepted, simply because my receiver wasn't where he was supposed to be. Man, at this point of the season, I had pretty much realized that this wasn't a winning team, and if I wanted to win, either something was going to have to change or I simply was going to have to leave. I knew I couldn't just write the rest of the season off though. Other schools were watching and taking notes, so every pass I made mattered. Our defense was able to force a turnover and put the ball back in our hands, and that's when I walked us all the way down the field to strike first with a touchdown. Of course, Clemson answered right back, so I already knew what type of game it was going to be, and trust me, I wasn't ducking no smoke. My boy LT came up clutch. He was able to break off a huge run up the middle of the defense. Then as soon as he got done having his way with them, I'd step up and make a play. That 1-2 punch I've been talking about all season worked perfectly yet again, as LT was able to run the ball in for 6 from right outside the end zone. Clemson came right back and put up some points of their own. I could feel the guys starting to panic a little bit, but I was calm, cool, and confident. Well, that's until I threw another interception, but this time, I'll admit, it wasn't the receiver's fault, but it certainly wasn't my fault either. I mean, sometimes the defense just plays good defense. Anyways, on what would be our final possession of the game, we were still trailing by 5 points. Yeah, that meant we still had a chance to take the lead, but credit to Clemson's girthy D up front, I didn't have time to make a damn pass. I mean, I was running for my life that whole possession, and eventually, I would take a huge sack that resulted in a 3rd and 20. Of course, we weren't able to convert on 3rd down, and we go on to lose yet another game at home versus yet another arch rival. Things was looking pretty ugly at this point. At that point in the season, I had a 66% completion rate and I had thrown for over 3,000 yards, but I only had 19 touchdowns with 16 interceptions. Yeah, that wasn't gonna cut it. We only had 3 games left in the season, and our next opponent was Mississippi State. Now, after really looking over my stats and comparing them to other quarterbacks across college football, I realized I had been playing horrible, but it wasn't my fault though. I mean, the group of receivers I had wasn't the best, and my offensive line. Yeah, my offensive line was ass. Like, bro, look what I did versus Colorado. I put on a clinic and I outplayed Shador. So if he's going to be the number 1 overall pick this year and I outplayed him, that could only mean one thing. Yeah, that means I'm the best player in the nation, but I'm playing on a sorry team. I took on that selfish mindset I had back in high school. I mean, at that point, it was clear we wasn't playing for no championship this year. So I started to play for myself. Yeah, no more risky passes leading to interceptions. No more throwing the ball away out of bounds, lowering my completion percentage. Yeah, all of that was over. I mean, I let this group of bums make me look bad for far too long. Yeah, now it was time for Big TJ to shine. Ironically, this mindset and playstyle proved to be very effective as we completely dominated Mississippi State pretty easy. Our running attack was on point this whole game. Yeah, LT finally started running with purpose and showing a little bit of passion instead of just playing around in the backfield. And our passing attack, man, it was just as good because like I told y'all, I was done taking risks. So that meant if you wasn't open, bro, I wasn't throwing it to you. I didn't care if that meant taking a sack or whatever, bro. It was what it was. Although we were able to win this game, you can tell that the team morale was at an all-time low. After the game, instead of celebrating a victory, everybody was just arguing and upset, but low-key, I ain't even care. The next week, we be on the road taking on UCLA. Now, as I just mentioned, the team morale was at an all-time low. I mean, nobody was really rocking with each other. Well, I guess I should say nobody was really rocking with me. I mean, the O-line hung with the O-line, the receivers with the receivers. I basically spent all week by myself. The jokes weren't as funny anymore, and the plane rides were silent. But strangely enough, we seem to be playing the best football we played all season. Now, there could be many reasons as to why this was, but if I'm being honest, man, I think everyone was just playing selfish. This season definitely didn't shape up how any of us expected it to, and we all knew there were going to be huge changes taking place this offseason. So I honestly feel like everyone just wanted to have a good end of season highlight tape to build off of come next year. Well, I mean, I'll speak for myself, that's what I was thinking. We started off very strong, jumping out to a 14-0 lead, but then UCLA went down and scored 7 points of their own. We got the ball back and picked up right where we left off the drive before. Now that same balanced offense I've been telling y'all about all season continued to be reliable as we worked our way all the way up the field. Now we got right inside the red zone on the 9-yard line, and that's when I found my receiver wide open in the back of the end zone for 6, giving me my first touchdown of the day. The Bruins refused to bend over as they fought back and cut the lead down to just 3 points. Now, there was still a ton of time left on the clock, so that's when I got specific instructions from the coach. He told me to just not turn the ball over, and if I have a shot, then go ahead and take it. Now, he had just given me the green light, and y'all should know me well enough by now to know that I took it. I threw a huge 30-yard dagger to the back of the end zone and officially gave us a large enough lead to close out the game. We went on to beat the Bruins on the road, and although it was basically the end of the season, we finally started to gel together and play as a team. In what would be our final game of our lackluster season, we would be playing against Coach Prime again and his Colorado Buffaloes. Now, this meant another head-to-head matchup against his son, Shador. Even though I had outplayed him in our first meeting, he was having a far better season than I was. Now, hold on. That don't mean he's better than me. All that means is he has a better team and he's surrounded by more weapons. And I made it my mission to prove just that in this game because I know I got a lot of doubters out there. But anyways, we jumped out to a very early lead just like we did in our first meeting. Also, just like our defense had done all season, they were playing incredible and they forced the 3 and out, putting the ball back into putting the ball back into my hands to go and make another play. And well, I did just that. But look, in this game, I was killing them boys with my feet. But I could tell that they had been studying me and watching film because they had a perfect game plan. I mean, all my favorite crossing routes were covered, so that left me no choice but to scramble and lead the pocket. Bro, I dog walked them boys all the way up the field, then I handed off the ball for an easy 2-yard touchdown. This being our last game of the season was crazy though. I remember that's all I could think about on our final drive up the field. It kind of felt like the last day of school. You know that feeling you get when you just know you're not going to see all the guys together again? Even though we didn't end on the best of terms, I had still just went to war with these dudes. We were brothers. Look, I still don't know what my future holds. I know a lot of coaches saw what I was capable of this year if given the right weapon, so I should have plenty of transfer options this offseason if I choose to do so, but I might just stay here and see what type of team we could put together next season. Y'all do me a favor and comment down below. What should my next move be? See, bro, I had a bad feeling about even coming here. Now something like this happens, man, the past few weeks of my life have felt like a never-ending nightmare. Just one thing after another. Not only am I stranded on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, I just talked to AAA and they said it's gonna take them 3 hours to get here. Look, I don't know what lesson life could be trying to teach me right now, but whatever it is, man, I've had enough. I guess since I got so much spare time on my hands, I might as well go ahead and make myself comfortable. After a crazy season at FSU, I needed an escape, so I decided to use some of my NIL money and take a nice vacation to the Bahamas. I also paid for my parents to come as well. You know, as kind of a thank you for everything they've done for me over the past few years. I promised myself while I was on vacation not to get on social media and not to think about football. Well, I did pretty good for the first few hours, but I eventually gave in and started scrolling on Twitter. Yeah, I wanted to see what posts people were making about me throughout the season, but I wasn't on there too long because it wasn't too interesting. Anyways, that night, I laid in my bed thinking about what my next move should be. As I said before, FSU was good to me, and Coach Norvell and I seem to be building a pretty good relationship. As a matter of fact, at the end of the season, he called me into his office for a quick meeting. You know, he just wanted to see where my head was at.
TJ, thanks for stopping by. I just wanted to touch base with you and see where your head was at now that the season is over.
Man, Coach, I'll be honest, I love it here, and I think this is a tremendous program. I feel like things really started to come together towards the end of the season, but as far as next season, I honestly don't know. I'm just hoping that you're able to bring in some more weapons for me to use offensively. That's really been my main concern.
Okay, great. So it sounds like we're on the same page. Myself and your coaches plan to hit the transfer portal really hard this offseason and bring in more talent on that side of the ball. Look, TJ, I just want you to know you're my guy for next season, okay? You have my word.
After meeting with Coach and him giving me his word, I knew my next stop had to be to talk to my receivers. As I said last episode, there was a lot of tension between them and myself, so I just wanted to smooth things over. They addressed a few of their concerns and I addressed a few of mine. When it was all said and done, I think we came to a pretty good understanding. Now, unfortunately, I can't say the same for me and DJ. I tried to talk to him and just basically tell him like, you know, this is my team now and he needed to embrace being my backup. But as you're about to see, he wasn't going for it.
Dog, are you stupid? You threw more interceptions this year than you did touchdowns, bum ass nigga. The only reason you even got to play is because I got injured. Otherwise, you'll be on the sideline holding coach's nuts. Man, miss me with that shit.
Man, bro, they trying to tell me my head gasket blew and it's going to be $175 for the repair and installation. Not only that, but I already had to pay $150 just for them to tow it here to the shop. Plus, once it gets repaired, I still got to drive another 2 hours to get to campus. Man, bro, today has already been a long day and sadly, it's just getting started. I knew DJ wouldn't take the news very well and I expected his reaction, but it didn't matter because coach had already given me his word that I was his guy. After I got back from that vacation I just mentioned, I got straight to work. Over the entire offseason, I worked on increasing my speed and agility and also my arm strength. Those improvements showed early on throughout camp, and I was clearly the favorite for QB1 going into the first game of the season. There was a lot of tension in the quarterback room. I mean, I had already secured my starting spot, so I was chilling, but oftentimes would catch DJ mugging me and making these weird faces. Like, I don't know if he was trying to intimidate me or what, but as you can see, man, I wasn't worried about nothing. My pops always told me when you great, you gonna have haters. I mean, I tried to make peace with Buddy, but he wasn't going for it, so I just felt like, hey, if it's smoke, then so be it. The first game of my sophomore season came at home versus Southern Miss. Now, I had complete confidence in my receivers as this was pretty much the same group that I had last year, so this was our second year playing together. But our offensive line, we added several new pieces, so I was a little bit more concerned about them and how they perform. But look, our first drive down the field, we had a little bit of trouble moving the ball and we would end up having to settle for a field goal. But our second drive was the complete opposite as we were able to move the ball up the field with complete ease. The blocking up front was amazing and I actually had time to sit and progress through my reads. But look, we had the Golden Eagles defense in retreat all the way up the field. That's when I would go on to throw my first touchdown of the season. On the second play of the very next drive, I would step up in the pocket and make a huge connection over the top of the defense for an 86-yard touchdown. Man, at that point, we were deep in our bag and firing on all cylinders, but just as it looked like we were beginning to pull away, I would get struck by that old turnover bug. While attempting to scramble outside of the pocket, I got sacked and unfortunately I fumbled, putting Southern Miss in great position to go on and tie the game. Tie game with 54 seconds left, the Golden Eagles would commit a huge face mask penalty which moved us right outside the end zone. Well, that's where I would go ahead and hand the ball off for the game-winning touchdown. I mean, other than that one costly turnover, I played great and we were officially off to a 1-0 start to the season. Our next game, we'd be on the road for our first big test, the LSU Tigers. Now this game was extremely important because at this point in the season, we were both undefeated. And we all know how one loss can be a death blow to the team's morale. Our first drive down the field, we looked completely unstoppable and the Tiger defense looked confused. Now coach pulled everybody in the huddle before the game and he instructed us all to play fast and aggressive. Well, that's exactly what we did as we were able to march down the field and strike first with a touchdown. Although this was only our second game of the season, man, our defense was looking like it was shaping up to be the best in the nation. They forced a turnover in the LSU red zone, putting the ball back into our hands. Now this was the perfect opportunity to try to go for a 2-for-1. We still had so much time left on the clock that I knew if we can get a quick score, we'd eventually get the ball back again before halftime. Well, I was trying to channel my inner Patty Mahomes and make an unbelievable play, but my receiver wasn't where he should have been and he made me throw an interception. Not only that, but the ref said I made an illegal forward pass on the play, so yeah, it was just all bad. Even though my 2-for-1 attempt resulted in an interception, we still got the ball back right before halftime, just like I said would happen. We only had just over 30 seconds to get into the end zone, and I wasn't settling for no field goal, but I was willing to open my thighs to get us a touchdown. I scrambled outside of the pocket and I got us right outside the end zone, and then I threw for a quick touchdown, giving us the 2-score lead. Now that touchdown would end up being the game winner as it was the final touchdown that we scored on the day. Luckily, our dominant D was able to hold the Tigers to just one score as we were able to secure the 14-7 victory on the road. Our next game, we be back on the road versus Boston College. Bro, I ain't gonna lie to you, this one was tough. I mean, we struggled from the very first snap. We had dropped passes, missed blocking assignments, tackles for loss, the whole nine. Now, I don't know if we were just overlooking them or maybe we was just feeling ourselves because we were coming off the win versus LSU. Whatever it was, man, I don't know, but it got pretty ugly there for a second. We wouldn't score our first touchdown until midway through the second quarter, bruh. I saw a huge hole in the middle of the defense, so I took off for a 20-yard touchdown. Of course, Boston College struck right back to regain the lead, but we'd start our next drive off with a huge run up the middle of the field, and it started to feel like the momentum was shifting a bit in our favor. Well, that's when I got completely pounded into the mattress by the D, resulting in a 4th and 20. We were down on our knees, but certainly not out. We needed to score quick, so I knew when I stepped back onto the field, all my passes had to be towards the end zone. Just when we needed it the most, I would connect with my tight end JB for a touchdown, cutting the lead down to just one score. 45 seconds left with perfect field position to tie the game. I drop back in the pocket and unfortunately, I would take another huge sack, resulting in a 16-yard loss. But I was able to get some of that back on third down. 4th and 12 on what would be our final chance to tie the game, I threw an interception to the back of the end zone, but only because my receivers couldn't make the play. Now, I know y'all gonna say that's my fault, but I did my job by getting the ball to the end zone. It's their job to come down with it. But nonetheless, we went on to lose our first game of the season on the road by only 7 points. Coming off that loss, surprisingly, the team seemed to still be in a very good space. Now, I certainly don't speak for everybody, but I truly feel like we didn't get beat by a better team. Nah, I feel like we just beat ourselves, and sometimes those are the worst losses you can take. Nonetheless, there were still games to be played, so we had to shift our focus to our next opponent, the Virginia Tech Hokies. This was actually one of those rough and rugged, hard-fought games. Yeah, there weren't very many points scored as both teams' defenses refused to give an inch. Now, I had a lot of success this game on the ground. Credit to the Hokies, they had a tremendous zone coverage, so every time I seen them dropping back into that zone, I'd be looking to take off and run. I broke off a huge 22-yard scramble that caught the defense off guard as they had our screen pass completely covered. Well, that run put us in perfect position to score, but unfortunately, my receiver couldn't make the play in the end zone even though I threw a perfect pass. Man, luckily our defense was able to come up with a very clutch turnover that secured us the 5-point victory at home. Rivalry week was upon us. It was time to eat and we had Gator on the menu. Now this game was extremely important to me because if you remember, my first time starting here at FSU was versus the Gators, and we lost that game by 2 points. So it was a must I got my lick back. All week across campus, students and teachers were coming up to me just trying to make sure I was locked in. I gave them my word that I wasn't coming back to campus without a victory over the Ops. This would be yet another hard-fought, low-scoring game. It really was a defensive battle that would come down to just a few key plays. Late in the fourth quarter, we were trailing by 3 points, but we were in perfect position to kick a field goal to tie the game. That's when I would make an excellent check down read to my halfback and he was able to fight to score the touchdown, giving us the lead and eventually the victory as we were able to beat the Gators at the Swamp. At this point in the season, we were 4-1. The team was injury free for the most part and there was a lot of buzz surrounding the program. Our next opponent was the Duke Blue Devils, who had already lost several games, but they were still definitely a dangerous team. Hey man, listen, I'm gonna go on record and say I think we had the toughest schedule out of every school in college football. Every team in the ACC conference is a threat, so you can never really let your foot off the gas. We knew we couldn't afford to play with this team or take them lightly, so we came out swinging, jumping on the Blue Devils early with the touchdown on our first drive, but credit to them as they were able to go down and answer right back with a touchdown of their own. Now the thing I want you to keep an eye on in this game is how comfortable I was in the pocket. I had tremendous faith in my O-line, so that allowed me to play with patience as I was finally able to work through my reads and make the correct pass. It was in this game that everything seemed to come together. All summer long, we heard Coach talk about having a balanced offense and how once everything started to gel together, we would be completely unstoppable. Well, I think it's safe to say that we finally achieved that. The defense was doing their job keeping our opponents off the scoreboard for the most part, and our offense was perfectly in sync. We went on to beat the Blue Devils on the road by 10 points, and although the scoreboard may not have reflected it, we totally dominated on all sides of the field. And what would be the final game of my sophomore season, unfortunately would also be the start of my problems. We were hosting our arch rivals Clemson, and from the very start of this game, it was nothing but chaos. On the very first play, I took a huge sack that resulted in a fumble, but luckily we were able to regain possession of the ball. Then a few plays later, I took another big hit, but I was able to get the pass off. My receiver came down with it and ran home into the end zone. This was one of those highlight type plays because not only did my receiver catch the ball over the top of the defenders, but there was a pass interference call on the defense as well. Listen, I don't care what nobody says, bro. This game, I showed I'm not only the best player to ever play here at FSU, but I'm arguably the best player to ever play the game. Now, before you get all in your feelings, before you get all emotional, bruh, just watch the tape. I was making unbelievable plays all game over one of the best teams in the conference. I had just threw a touchdown to take the 1-point lead, then Clemson came right back and scored. We only had a minute and a half left, and that's when I threw a 50-yard Hail Mary that my guy came down with, putting us in perfect position to score and seal the victory. Well, that's when I would take a blindsided sack that caused me to miss the remainder of the game. We would go on to lose to our rivals at home. After a long 16-hour drive here from Florida State, I finally made it and got my room unpacked for the most part. But look, last episode I showed you how my time at FSU went, but I didn't show you how it ended. So now that I finally made it to my new home, I think now's a good time to go ahead and close out that chapter. Last season at Florida State, I had the team sitting very nice with a 5-2 record before my injury. I mean, honestly, things were going great up until that point. The team doctors demanded I go get some CT scans done because I was having severe migraines from the concussion. Well, the doctors at the hospital ordered for me to be sidelined for at least the next 4 weeks. That meant my backup DJ would finally get another chance at being a starter. I can't lie, Dog took full advantage of the opportunity and he played great while I was out. But I was under the impression that once I was cleared to play again, the job would be mine. Well, as you're about to see, unfortunately that wasn't the case.
Look, Trez, coaches and I are happy to have you back and ready to go. We're definitely going to need you down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, Coach, I'm happy to be back. I'm assuming we just going to pick things up right where we left off, right?
Well, not quite. Look, man, I'll be honest. We like the way the offense has been flowing with DJ under center, and for right now, we're going to keep things as is. But as you know, things can change in an instant. So I need you to stay ready, okay? Also, we're going to need you to help with DJ a few moments after practice each day, just to make sure he knows what to expect going forward. But hey, listen, man, we're happy you're back.
And just like that, the job that was once mine was now officially gone. I was pissed. I mean, before I went down with that injury, I was having a tremendous season. So for them to do me like that was crazy. But I wasn't going down quietly. Yeah, the whole world was finna find out about this. I went home that same night and jumped straight on Instagram Live. Now, I'm sure a lot of y'all was on the live with me, so you already know what I said. But for those of you that wasn't, bro, I went crazy. I mean, I was saying some real diabolical things. Hell, I think I even pulled the race card if I'm being honest. But look, the next day, I'm tripping. It was that same night. Yeah, that same night, Coach called me to his office immediately. Of course, he was pissed off, but honestly, I didn't even care because I was pissed off too. They took my starting job from me due to an injury. And the policy around here has always been, you don't lose your job due to an injury. So since they wanted to go against the policy, so was I. The same way I took shots at DJ before taking his starting spot is the same way he took shots at me after taking mine. As soon as the news broke that he was now QB1, this dude ran straight to the media talking greasy. Well, the tension between us had reached a boiling point, and before practice one day, we ended up throwing hands. Man, I was beating the sleeves off of Buddy, and that's when a few teammates stepped in to break it up. Next thing I knew, we were both in coach's office waiting to receive our punishment for fighting. This dude DJ got off with basically a warning. This nigga actually cried, bruh. He was in there crying. But for me, it was a little bit different, man. I was officially dismissed from the Florida State program for conduct detrimental to the team. So as you just seen, I was dismissed from the program at FSU with about 4 games left to play in the season. Now, did I feel like I should have been kicked off the team? In the moment, absolutely not. But I had several weeks to reflect on not only everything that happened at Florida State, but my entire football career as a whole. The weeks following the incident that happened, I pretty much went into isolation. Now, I wouldn't say I was depressed, but more so in shock. My dismissal from FSU would mean I'd have to start over somewhere else, which ultimately meant 3 different schools in 3 different years. Not only that, but word had got out about me kicking DJ's ass, and the constant arguments I had with my coaches at Oregon and Florida State. Oh, plus my publicity stunt I pulled on Instagram Live and in the media. Listen, I had officially earned the reputation for being a problem in the locker room. I'll admit, I was feeling lost, so I reached out to my pops for a bit of guidance and advice, but all he did was pretty much tell me what I wanted to hear. But that's not what I needed. Nah, what I needed was the truth, and surprisingly, my mom was the one who gave it to me.
Listen, Trez, I'll be honest with you. You've got to stop running from the work. I mean, you transferred out of IMG Academy because you lost your starting spot. You left Oregon because you didn't want to put the work in to become a starter. And now here we are back at square one. Son, you are extremely talented and you always have been, but if you run away every time it gets tough, you'll never be successful.
As hard as it was to accept, my mom was absolutely right. I needed to humble myself. I mean, I had really been walking around like I was some 2-time NFL MVP, but I hadn't even accomplished anything in college yet. The first step on my road to redemption was finding a new program. Now, I had a lot of things to take into consideration before making my decision. You know, stuff like their record last season, their coaching staff, and their current roster. Well, once I found a few suitable candidates, I started making calls. Man, look, when I say nobody was interested, I mean nobody. Honestly, the whole experience was quite embarrassing. I had never been rejected that many times in my life. But I didn't panic. I just simply reached out to smaller schools. You know, just schools that weren't as big, like UAB. Hey, Coach Dilfer, how's it going, man? This is Trez Johnson. Remember you came to a few of my high school games. Look, coach, I'm sure you've heard that I'm no longer at Florida State, and I'm currently looking for a new place to call home. Well, you were the first coach that came to mind, so I figured I'd call you to try to set up a visit for this summer. Call after call, rejection after rejection. I'll be honest, I began to feel defeated, and I even started to consider Division II schools or taking a JUCO route. But luckily, that's when I found my new home, the University of Iowa. Look, I'm fully aware that this could be my final chance playing at this level, so I can't afford to blow this opportunity. I also know that a lot of y'all in the comment section have already been writing me off, but that's okay because I'm not writing back. All eyes are on me right now, and I'm ready to show the world what I'm made of. There's no more room for excuses or second chances. Nah, it's either now or never. The first game of my junior season came at home versus a very formidable opponent, the Utah State Aggies. Even though I had gone through a full spring camp with the team, I was still very nervous about running this new offense. Yeah, I did well throughout camp and in the spring game, but to be playing against an actual opponent, that was totally different. We were moving the ball very well on our first drive down the field, but those first game jitters I just mentioned caused me to make a huge mistake as I fumbled at the end of what would have been a huge play. But ironically, I think that mishap is exactly what I needed to settle down. When I went to the sideline, Coach Campbell was oddly happy. He told me I finally got my first mistake out the way, so now I can relax and play some football. A relaxed quarterback is a dangerous quarterback. Plus, my offensive line did an amazing job of giving me a clean pocket. With just over 30 seconds left in the first half, I would score my first touchdown in my junior year. Remember, I told y'all I have been working on my improviser and scrambler badges all summer. As you can see, all that work paid off as I was able to scramble in for an 18-yard touchdown. With only a 3-point lead in the fourth quarter, the game was still way too close to be comfortable. We had great field position and a perfect opportunity to go up by 2 scores. I showed tremendous trust on my tight end Luke as I stepped up in the pocket and delivered an absolute beam over the top of the defense. 4 yards out from the end zone, I called my own number on the option and cut up field for a touchdown. We went on to secure our first victory at home, walking away with a 10-point win over the Utah State Aggies. There's no better game in sports than a rivalry game. The stadiums are always packed, the fans are always loud, and the tensions are always high. Well, week 2 of the season, we find ourselves in a very chaotic environment on the road versus our in-state rivals, the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, not only was this a rivalry game, but the stakes were extra high as the Cy-Hawk Trophy was on the line. You could feel the tension throughout the building all week. There was no joking or playing around. As a matter of fact, we couldn't even wear the color red to class or to practice. Listen, that's how serious this game is. We were able to strike first, putting 7 points on the board. Then the Cyclones immediately went down and tied the game on their first possession. My offensive line gave me a clean pocket to drop back in and scan the field. Well, I ended up throwing a hospital ball to my halfback over the middle for the first down, moving us right inside the red zone. The Cyclones sent the man blitz, so that left the middle of the field completely wide open. I scrambled into the end zone untouched. We had 30 seconds left in a 3-point lead going into halftime. Now, I believe most teams would have just taken a knee, but instead, I got the okay from Coach Campbell to take a shot downfield. So y'all gotta remember, this was a rivalry game, so win or lose, we was gonna play aggressive and we was gonna take chances. 11 seconds left, we could have easily played it safe and kicked the field goal, but nah. Y'all know I'm greedy. I connected with my senior wideout Nico in the end zone, giving us a 10-point lead going into halftime. Although we were on the road, the stadium was completely silent. I don't think the Cyclones or their fans were prepared for our aggressive play style, as we were able to dominate on both sides of the ball. I don't know if Coach Campbell was a psychic or what, but during his halftime speech, he told us the defense was going to force a 3 and out, and then we'd go the length of the field and score. Well, that's exactly what happened as we were able to pick up the huge victory on the road versus our in-state rivals. Hey, listen, that Cy-Hawk Trophy was coming home with us this year. Coming off that huge win on the road versus Iowa State, we'd be back at home taking on the Western Michigan Broncos in the pouring rain. The week leading up to this game was crazy because we were only able to practice twice due to severe thunderstorms and tornado warnings. Now, I'm from Florida, so I'm used to the rain, but tornadoes? Nah, bruh. That lack of practice took a major toll on us as we started off this game extremely sloppy. We were completely out of sync and it seemed almost as if we had no team chemistry. On our first drive down the field, we made it right outside the goal line, but ended up getting stopped and had to settle for 3 points. With the rain pouring down, we had to rely heavily on our run game, but when we did pass the ball, it seemed like it was going for 30 or 40 yards every single time. Me and my guy KJ were the perfect 1-2 punch. He was killing him on the ground and I was killing him in the bed. If the defense decided to press up, I'd simply pass the ball over the top. If they decided to fall back, I'd hand it off for him to run it up the middle. At the start of the season, if you were to tell me our first big test would be the Western Michigan Broncos, I probably would have just laughed in your face. But that just goes to show how tough college football is. I mean, every team you match up against is a threat, and if you take them lightly, it could result in a loss. Luckily, we were able to keep the Broncos in the stable and pull off a 10-point victory at home. Although the final score didn't reflect how close the game was, this was definitely an eye-opener for us on the season. As tornadoes and thunderstorms continue to sweep across the Midwest, the team's ability to actually practice and prepare for upcoming games continued to be affected. For almost a week and a half, we weren't able to practice outside, but instead we would have like walkthroughs and dress rehearsals in the gym. It didn't affect me very much because, as you know, the quarterback position is mainly mental. But going into the game against the Purdue Boilermakers, I was a bit concerned on what type of effect it would have on the rest of the team. Surprisingly, there seemed to be no effect at all. I mean, there were a few mental errors, but those were mainly on my behalf. But for the most part, we went out there and did our thing. At the start of the fourth quarter, we had a 14-point lead, and to be honest, we seemed to be the stronger team. My guy KJ was giving them boys hell on the ground, and of course I was carving up the defense through the air. Even though this was only the fourth game of the season, I had already established a very strong connection with my senior tight end Luke. He was not only my safety valve when I got in trouble, but he also quickly became my go-to target. He ended up being player of the game, as I think he finished with like 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Of course, we walked away with the blowout victory at home, improving our record to 4-0 on the season. It was week 5 and we were undefeated on the season. We had finally broken into the top 25 teams in the nation, sitting very nice at the 22nd spot. We were rolling, but we eventually came up against a college football powerhouse in the Penn State Shitty Lions. This game was being nationally televised all over the world, so some of the guys were a bit nervous, but not me. I play my best when the lights are the brightest. We'd strike first, marching down the field and scoring a touchdown on our opening drive of the second quarter. Our defense was able to keep the Lions caged, getting 2 consecutive stops on back-to-back drives, putting the ball back into our hands. Well, that's when I will pull off one of the biggest plays of my career. I broke off a huge 80-yard run up the middle of the defense. I swear, I felt like Moses the way the field parted open for me. I went completely untouched. I really started celebrating 25 yards out from the end zone. That play gave us a 14-0 lead. That lead would quickly be erased as Penn State went on to score back-to-back touchdowns, tying the game going into the fourth quarter. Well, that's when I activated my clutch gene. Dropping back in the pocket, I hit KJ on a wheel route for a touchdown, snatching a lead right back from the Lions. Well, they refused to back down and force the game into overtime. But remember what I told y'all, players make plays. I connected with my sophomore receiver Seth Anderson for 6. Up until that point, he was having a pretty quiet game, but he stepped up when we needed him the most. A touchdown would give us the victory. It was 2nd and 17 when I threw up a 50-50 ball for Deontay, and thank God he came down with it. 3rd and 4, needing to make a play, I connected yet again with Seth Anderson right outside the goal line, but he fumbled the ball after making the catch. Luckily, the ball would bounce out of bounds, and 2 plays later, I went completely beast mode, breaking tackles and stumbling my way into the end zone. This play ended up being the game winner as we picked up the hard-fought victory on the road, moving on with the record of 5-0 on the season. After the Penn State game, the attention surrounding the program grew times 10. Not only was the game an all-time classic, but we both were undefeated and top 25 teams. Media members from all around began to question if we were the real deal. Well, I believe our next game on the road versus Michigan State put all those questions to rest. I started to get all the buzz I had been searching for since I came into college, but this time it was for all the right reasons. Yeah, the season was still young, but my play up until that point was phenomenal. I showed I could lead an offense while having very few turnovers, and also I could step up and be reliable in close games. A huge component to my success this season was my ability to determine when to hold on to the ball or when to hand it off during the option, and also when to make the pass or when to scramble. I believe this spread offense allowed me to actually play like a true dual threat quarterback. Tie game in the fourth quarter with only about 2.5 minutes left. The ball was in our hands and we had to go the full length of the field. Hey man, listen, this is every young quarterback's dream. Clock management is so vital in this situation because we didn't want to get a ball back to the Spartans with enough time to mount a comeback. With about 1 minute left in the game, I got the signal from coach to start looking for shots downfield. I knew the Spartan coverage would be extremely tight, so this is when I would need one of my teammates to step up and make a play. And that's exactly what my guy Seth Anderson did, coming down with a walk-off game winner catch over the top of the defense. This play ended up being on SportsCenter top 10, and we ended up preserving our undefeated record with yet another last-second victory. We had yet another rivalry game on our schedule as we were on the road taking on the Wisconsin Badgers in negative 10-degree temperatures. So far, the record between the two schools is razor thin. Wisconsin had the slight edge with 49 wins to our 46, but of course, I was coming out here looking to narrow that gap. But there was one major problem. Bro, I was freezing. As y'all know, I'm a Florida boy, so I'm not used to these temperatures. If I'm being honest, before coming to Iowa, I didn't even know the temperatures could be negative. Usually the majority of the players on both teams were out there sleeveless, right? Meanwhile, I was bundled up. It seemed like every single game we had this season would come down to the wire. Well, this one would be no different. Tied at 14 in the fourth quarter, neither team showed any sign of backing down. Scrambling off to the right-hand side of the field, I float a perfectly placed ball to my tight end EJ to give us a 7-point lead. Of course, with so much time left on the clock, the Badgers would march down the field and score. Yet again, we found ourselves in another close game. Ball in our hands with 2 minutes left on the clock. By this time, this situation had become all too familiar. Slipping and sliding in the snow, I stepped up in the pocket and threw an absolute dagger to Deontay, who fell right into the end zone. We had done it again. Another all-time classic. Another last-second victory. Another rival slayed at the hands of the Iowa Hawkeyes. 7-0 and the number 14th team in the nation, we were rolling. I honestly feel like, considering all the competition we had beaten, we should have been ranked higher, but apparently we still had some doubters. Our next game, we find ourselves on the road versus a 4-3 Illinois team, and for the second straight game, I was still freezing. But look, this game was never really close, and I think from the kickoff, you could easily tell who the better team was. We had just reached a point in our season where everything was working in our favor, and our team chemistry was at an all-time high. I felt totally locked in with my receivers. It's almost like I knew what their next move was going to be before they did. Although this was a low-scoring game, we went on to win pretty easily, and I had a tremendous day on the ground, rushing for almost 250 yards. I realized that when the weather is cold like that, I tend to have huge rushing days. I don't know if it's because I'm so cold and running makes me heat up or what, but whatever the reason was, we was winning games and I was doing my thing, so hey, it is what it is. Finally, all the snow had melted and there was just a slight chill in the air. Perfect football weather if you ask me. The Minnesota Golden Gophers were up next on the schedule, and at that point of the season, they didn't have anything to lose. Their record wasn't very good, and I'm sure they would have loved nothing more than giving us our first loss on the season. Honestly, these are the teams you got to watch out for because they're actually the most dangerous. They have nothing left to play for. Of course, they're not going to a national championship, and they don't have enough wins to play in a bowl game. So, I mean, they're really just playing for upsets. The Gophers jumped out to a 6-point lead heading into halftime, but with only 40 seconds left on the clock, we tied the game after Deontay completely torched the defenders for a 65-yard touchdown. But the celebrations didn't last long because Minnesota would take a kick return to the house right before halftime, so we started off the second half trailing again by 6 points. I'll give credit to the Gophers, man. They had a pretty good defensive scheme. That actually caused me to sit in the pocket a lot longer than I would have liked, which eventually ended up leading to a few sacks. But of course, we made our adjustments and eventually ran away with the game. Listen, I've been trying to tell y'all all series that all I needed was a good offensive line and good receivers. With those two things, I'd be able to make miracles happen. I know everybody thought I was just talking and too full of myself, but with the 9-0 record, the proof is in the pudding. We were 9-0 on the season and we had moved up to the 7th spot in the national ranking. All of a sudden, the college football playoff started to become a real possibility. We were back at home in front of a sold-out crowd taking on Rutgers, who had only won 4 games this season. Now, overall, our team's health was pretty good. I mean, we did have a few minor injuries, but that was normal for that time of year. We were marching down the field headed towards the end zone, but that's when I would make a very costly mistake because my O-line my receiver did. It was my fault. I threw the ball in the tight coverage when I should have actually just taken a sack. Rutgers took full advantage of that opportunity and scored, taking a 7-point lead. We come right back on the following drive and pick up a score of our own. I connect with my go-to target Luke on the crossing route over the top of the defense for 6 points. But unfortunately, Rutgers went on a crazy run. They took a kickoff to the house, and then they forced us to go 3 and out, and then their offense turned right back around and scored. In only just a few minutes, a tie game turned into a 17-point deficit. We did what we could to fight back. Yeah, you tripping if you thought we was just gonna roll over. We were able to score and cut the lead down to just 10 points. Then our defense went out and got a huge stop to put the ball back into our hands. I can't lie, bro. I felt like Tom Brady himself the way I was playing on our final offensive drive. My safety valve Luke came in clutch yet again for me, securing a toe tap and touchdown. But in the end, we would go on to lose by just 3 points and unfortunately snapping our undefeated record. Bro, that loss against Rutgers was heartbreaking. I mean, it really hurt. A lot of the guys after the game were crying, and hell, I'll be real, I even dropped a few tears myself. The crazy thing is, though, I can't even say we were overlooking them. I think maybe they were just a better team that day and had the better game plan. With that loss, we fell right outside the top 10 to the number 11 spot, and clearly our championship hopes were no more, but we still had games left to play. And what would be our final rivalry game of the season, we'd be on the road taking on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, even though we were no longer undefeated, this was still a rivalry game, so we had to approach it as such. I mean, the Cornhuskers didn't give a damn about our record. Nah, they only cared about kicking our ass and having the bragging rights until we played them again next season. So that meant we had to come into this game with the same mindset we had before we suffered that defeat. This game was never really close. I mean, we had Nebraska's number in pretty much all facets. I broke off a huge 80-yard touchdown run on the option keeper right before the end of the third quarter. That play was really the death blow as the stadium went completely silent for the remainder of the game. We went on a cruise to an easy victory on the road. And what would be the final game of my junior season, it would actually turn out to kind of be the most important game because all eyes were on our opponent. The number one team in the nation, the Michigan Wolverines, were at our house and we had the perfect opportunity to pull off an upset. For my own selfish reasons, in my head, I was treating this game like a national championship. But listen, just hear me out, bro. Hear me out. I knew if I performed well enough here, all my old struggles off the field and my issues on the field could potentially be forgotten. So I knew I needed to have a great game. Man, listen, bro. I'm going to say this and I'm going to be honest. Having a great game was a lot easier said than done. Bro, I totally see why this team was the number one team in the nation. I mean, we made it to number 7 and I felt like we were pretty good, but I honestly think in this game, that's when I fully realized that there was levels to this shit. Bro, they had us beat at every single point. I mean, their D-line, their offensive line, their receivers, their everything, bro. It was nothing that we can do. They went on to hold us to only 2 touchdowns for the entire day, and they beat us on our home turf. It's all good though. We finished the season with a very impressive 10-2 record, and we'd be playing in a very prominent bowl game. I put up massive numbers this year, and I honestly think my play may have got my name into a few NFL conversations. Man, it's crazy to think that after all the time I spent putting in work on the field, today could really be my last time picking up a football. Since a kid, my only dream was to make it to the NFL, and depending on how today goes, that dream could actually come true. There's about 12 scouts from different NFL teams here at my pro day to watch me perform. Personally, I feel like I should have been invited to the combine, but things just didn't work out in my favor. It's all good though. I'm still gonna do my thing. I'm feeling confident, and I know the only thing I have to do is be myself, and everything else will be just fine. I got a few receivers to come out and catch some balls for me, and I think we may even do a bit of 7-on-7 with the DBs. But look, I'm about to go ahead and get warmed up. While I do that, let me show y'all what all went into making the decision for me to come back and play my senior year. Instead of going back home to Florida at the end of last season, I decided to stay on campus and enroll in my last few classes I needed to graduate. Now, I wasn't sure if I'd be back for my senior year, but I knew for damn sure I was leaving with my degree. But look, I helped lead our team to a fantastic 10-2 season my junior year. We just barely missed the playoffs. Instead, we be in Arlington taking on the Tennessee Volunteers in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Although it wasn't the most prominent bowl game, the fans still came out and packed the arena, and both teams played their heart out. We go on to lose to the Volunteers, but I still put on a hell of a performance, throwing damn near 300 yards. After the Cheez-It Bowl was over, I came back here to campus at Iowa and really just hid out of my dorm for like a week straight. Everybody was hitting me up wanting to know what my next move was going to be, but the problem was I didn't even know. Of course, I got online and read all types of articles from draft analysts and so-called experts, but honestly, that only complicated things even more. Some were saying I'd go undrafted and others were saying the 5th or 6th round. I needed some type of clarity and honestly some guidance, so I hollered at one of the staff members here on campus that I have a lot of respect for. It was good to hear things from a different perspective. He basically told me straight up that I had a reputation for being a problem in the locker room and also being a bad teammate. He told me another successful year in college could easily change that narrative, no problem. I sat there and listened to everything he had to say, and even though it was quite hard to hear, I knew he was absolutely right. Besides, I knew I'd make more money this year with my NIL deals than I would being a 6th or 7th round draft pick. I went home that same evening and thought about it a bit. Once I made my final decision, I jumped on Twitter and let the world know that I'd be returning to Iowa for my senior season. The biggest knock that the draft analysts seemed to have about my game was my passing mechanics and my decision making. So I worked all offseason to sharpen up my throwing form. I swear I must have threw over 10,000 passes. Also, I basically lived in the film room. If I wasn't in my dorm, I was in there studying different defensive concepts. I really put in work all summer, so going into my senior year, I was more than ready to perform. Alright, so look, we're here at the most important part of my pro day, and that is the passing portion. I've already done all my other drills. Now, I didn't do the 40-yard dash just because I didn't think it was really necessary. But everything else is done. Now we're here at the money maker for the QB position. Now we're going to do a little bit of 7-on-7. Let me read these instructions. Welcome to your pro day. Instructions: without leaving the pocket, complete as many passes as possible. Touchdowns will raise your draft profile. That's pretty simple, right? Let's go ahead and get into it. Alright bro, so it looks like that we get 7 plays to try to score 7 touchdowns. I'm gonna do my best to dot these boys up. Now these are my teammates, they out here helping me out, but they definitely not taking it easy on me. Okay, get up. Okay, let's go, baby. That's what I need, baby. 2 for 2, man. Make these plays, let's go. Okay, so it actually looks like the ball is moving back further, so I guess it's from different positions on the field. Dot my boy up. Hey man, I'm dropping dimes, man. There we go. Okay, we going the opposite direction. Let me see what we got. There he is. Catch that for me. Yes, Sirski. That's exactly what we needed. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna just hit the check down right here. Let me see. Good route. Let's go, baby. All right, we got one more, man. We gotta go 6 for 7 at least. 6 for 7. Can we do it? Yes, Sirski, man. Count me in, baby. I think we had an excellent pro day, man. So now that all the hard work is done, I can finally relax. My pro day went pretty well. I mean, I could have did a little bit better on the interview portion, but I can't lie, I was a little bit nervous. Anyways, I'm headed back home to my parents' crib in Florida. I think I'll probably just chill there until draft night. But look, I got about a 2-hour flight ahead of me, so I figured now would be a good time to show you what all took place my senior year. The first game of my senior season started off with a bang. We were at home versus our in-state rivals, the Iowa State Cyclones. On literally our first offensive play, I took an option right up the center of the field for a 72-yard touchdown. Our sold-out home crowd went crazy. Just like I told y'all last season, these rivalry games will be some of the best football you'll ever see. They're always competitive and both teams are always willing to lay it all out on the line. With only about 3 seconds left in the first quarter, I would make a very costly mistake. Not only did I eye my receiver all the way down the field, but I completely ignored my other check down options. I mean, I literally had 3 other receivers wide open, but instead I threw up a 50-50 ball that got intercepted by the defense. It's all good though, totally my fault, and I accepted full accountability. I wish I was able to say I learned from my mistake, but unfortunately that wasn't the case, as I came out on the very next drive and threw another interception. I wasn't playing like myself, and I knew exactly why. I had fully bought into the Iowa Hawkeye spirit, and it was rivalry week, so I was acting unusual. I mean, I was super turned up, but 2 back-to-back interceptions in the first half, yeah, that calmed me down really quick. Iowa State took full advantage of those turnovers and put points on the board each time. We got the ball first coming out of halftime, and coach stressed how important it was that we score. He said a touchdown on this drive could completely swing the momentum back into our favor, so I knew I had to get us into the end zone. Dropping back on 1st and 10, I was scanning the field and I would find my new target, freshman Alex Mota, with about 2 steps on the defense. I threw an absolute dick, hitting him in the chest as he ran into the end zone. This would be the first touchdown of his young college career. Tie game at the beginning of the 4th quarter. The ball was in our hands with a chance to mount a drive to take the lead. Listen, I have no idea what coverage the defense was in, but it seemed like every single one of my receivers was being double covered downfield, so I had no choice but to scramble. I was able to pick up quite a few yards on this drive using my legs, and it seemed like we were marching our way to the end zone. But on 3rd and 3, the Cyclone defense sniffed out the option play and stopped me just short of the first down. With the game being so close, we had no choice but to settle for the field goal to go up by 3 points. Several of the key pieces to our defense last year came back this year, and they picked up right where they left off. They were able to force a 3 and out and put the ball back into our hands. We only needed to pick up 1 first down to win the game, and we could have just watched the clock run out. But nah, this was our in-state rival, and coach wanted to snap their neck. So on 3rd and 3, I was able to connect with my receiver in the end zone for a touchdown, officially sealing the deal. We went on to take a 10-point victory over the Cyclones, ensuring that Sky High Trophy would be staying at home with us. Officially ranked the number 17th team in the nation, we were back at home hosting the Troy Trojans for our 2nd game of the season. Still riding off the high from our victory over Iowa State, I honestly think you could have put any team in front of us and we would have made easy work of them. Our first drive down the field, we came up with a huge defensive pass interference penalty. Well, that resulted in excellent field position, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to take advantage because I went down with the injury. Although I was in tremendous pain, the injury turned out not to be serious at all, as I pretty much just got the wind knocked out of me. I would be out of the game until the start of the second quarter. I knew going down with that injury would be motivation for the Trojan defense to try to hurt me even worse next time, so I wanted to send a message that I wasn't no hoe. I started playing extremely aggressive, and that energy seemed to rub off on the rest of the team. We pushed them boys all the way up the field to right outside the red zone. That's when I would strike with the game's first touchdown to my sophomore halfback Patterson. We found out the hard way last season after I lost to Rutgers that you can't let teams hang around and you can't overlook any opponents. Well, I had to remind the guys on the sideline to stay locked in. I knew if we were able to go out and get another score before halftime, it would be a good chance that we could run away with the game. With only 10 seconds left in the first half, I connected with who was quickly becoming my favorite target, Alex Mota, for a touchdown. Although he was just a freshman, he seemed to be picking up our offense very well. Third quarter, with a 10-point lead, it started to feel like we were running away with the game. Our defense was playing just as strong as they did in the first half with no signs of letting up. I knew if we were able to get into the end zone at least one more time, it would probably be an early night for me, and honestly, that didn't sound too bad. I peeped the Trojans were sending an all-out blitz, so at the line, I called an audible for my guy Nico to run a fly route, and the ball met him in the end zone for a touchdown. Just like I thought, that touchdown would be the last play of the game for me as we take a 10-point victory over the Trojans, moving on with the 2-0 record. Our first road game of the season came against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, they're also our rivals, so we came into this game on 10, ready for a shootout. Well, literally the first play of the game resulted in a 70-yard touchdown by my guy KJ. As we were leaving the hotel headed to the stadium, KJ told everybody he was going to make a huge impact today. Well, bro stood on business. After our 2 wins to start the season, we moved up one spot to the 16th ranked team in the nation. The buzz surrounding my name was pretty quiet. It really started to build towards the end of last season, but it died down over the summer. But I was okay with that because I knew there was only a matter of time until I started to pop back up in those conversations. But look, the game started to get heated and tensions between the two teams started to flare. That was expected, and honestly, I was looking forward to it. I feel like I play my best when it matters the most. 3rd and 5 with all my receivers covered upfield, I scrambled off to the right-hand side and found nothing but daylight. Now, I was going to do a little celebration, but the defense was closing in faster than I thought. Nonetheless, we jump out with a 7-point lead to start the second quarter. Minnesota dog walked our defense up the field and scored with ease. I'll be honest, at that point, I started to get a little bit concerned and honestly a bit nervous. I felt like it would be nothing that we can do to stop them from getting big plays, but I still have faith in my guys. Coach always tells us to just do our job and let him worry about the rest, so that's what I did when I got back on the field. Our offense was able to move the ball into the red zone, and I scrambled for what should have been a touchdown, but the refs called it short. No worries though, KJ was able to run the ball in untouched on the very next play, putting us right back up on the scoreboard. Finally, our defense was able to get a stop. Minnesota went for it on 4th and 1, but our defense stood strong. We take over possession with our backs against the wall and a mile away from our end zone. I was able to break free out of the pocket and find absolutely nobody on the left-hand side of the field. With one man to beat, I juked him out of his shoes, but I would get brought down in the process. This was the moment we were looking for. With that run, the momentum has swung in our favor, but we needed to capitalize. Once again, we found ourselves just short of the touchdown right outside the end zone, and we'd hand the ball off to KJ, and he was able to take it in for 6, putting us back on the scoreboard yet again. Up 2 touchdowns with just over 5 minutes left, yours truly put the final nail in the coffin with a huge run up the sideline for a touchdown. We not only knocked off our rivals on the road, but we did it in a dominant fashion, staying undefeated and moving on with the 3-0 record. In what could quite possibly be the biggest game of our season, we'd be on the road taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think I speak for everybody when I say we were extremely excited for this game. Not only did our program have a little bit of motion, but the Buckeyes were the number 4 ranked team in the nation. So that meant all eyes were going to be on this game. If there was ever a time to step up to the plate and perform, this was it. The game started off as expected. The Buckeyes scored early, and we came back with a touchdown of our own. Now, we seemed to be moving the ball pretty easily against their defense early on, but I quickly realized that I couldn't hold on to the ball very long because our O-line was a bit overmatched. Our second drive down the field resulted in a 3-and-out because I took a huge sack after only standing in the pocket for like 4 seconds. We get the ball to start the third quarter, only trailing by 4 points. Now, this was the perfect opportunity to go down and take the lead. I take an option keeper up the field for like 20 yards, and then I found my wide out through a small gap in the defense, but unfortunately he dropped the ball. Now that play would have been key because it would have given us a first down, because on the following play, I take another huge sack and we go 3-and-out yet again. The Buckeyes would take over possession and score, increasing their lead to 11 points. Now we were down, but certainly not out. I knew if we had any chance to come back and get a victory, we needed to score on this drive. I activated my Jamarcus Russell mode and started slinging the ball downfield. When the Buckeyes dropped back into coverage, I stepped up and scrambled out of the pocket, getting us all the way down to right outside the goal line. Then I connected with KJ on a screen pass that he took in for a touchdown, shaving 7 points off their lead. Unfortunately though, our efforts weren't enough to win the game. Ohio State scored score it again, and with only 50 seconds left in the game, it'd be too little too late. We'd suffer our first loss of the season. Coming off our first loss of the season, the team was more focused and dangerous than ever. Sometimes it just takes realizing that you're not untouchable for you to tighten up and stop making those small repeated mistakes. I know I mentioned before that when a team loses a game early on in the season, it can be somewhat of a death blow, but that wasn't the case for us. Our energy was high and we still had a lot to play for. That loss knocked us down to the 19th ranked team, so just 2 spots, but we were still in the top 20 and we still had a lot of games left. Our next game would be at home versus the Washington Huskies. This game started off strange as we get a safety at the end of the first half. Coming out in the second half, we'd go 3 and out on our first drive because I overthrew 2 of my receivers. I don't know, we were a bit out of sync, but we definitely needed to lock back in. The Huskies had jumped out to a 9-point lead and all the momentum was on their side. We were in urgent need of a touchdown or a miracle, and luckily we got both. Stepping up in the pocket, I had my guy Alex wide open with at least 30 yards of open space ahead of him, but instead I launched a prayer into the end zone, which resulted in a pass interference against the defense. This is just the miracle we were looking for. From the 1-yard line on the option keeper, I thrusted my way into the end zone for a touchdown. Down 17-25 with 2 minutes left, it wasn't looking good. We needed a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Remember at the start of this game I mentioned those small repeated mistakes? Well, I hadn't quite learned my lesson as I picked up 2 back-to-back penalties for illegal forward passes, one of which was for a damn touchdown. I couldn't believe myself, but I didn't have time to pout because we still had a game to win. 3rd and 20, desperately needing a first down, I link up with my safety valve, Alex, picking up the first down. And then on the very next play, I go back to Alex again with the absolute laser right inside the end zone, tying the game at 25 with about a minute and a half left. We had successfully mounted a comeback, but now we were needing a victory. With about 40 seconds left in regulation, we had to go 60 yards up the field, but in just 2 pass completions, I was able to put us right outside of field goal range, and then I picked up an extra 5 yards on the option keeper. Our kicker sent the game winner straight down the upright, securing the victory over the Grizzlies and putting us back into the win column. Our first snow game of the season came on the road in East Lansing versus the Michigan State Spartans. Now, I know I mentioned before just how much I hate the freezing temperatures, the ice, and the snow, but if I'm being honest, man, I seem to have my best games when the weather is like this. At this point in the season, the Spartans were sitting right above us as the 17th ranked team in the nation, so a win here on the road could do big things for our team. Our first drive down the field couldn't have gone any better. With the weather being so bad, we had to rely on our run game, and my boy KJ didn't miss a beat. He put the team on his back and walked us up the field into the end zone. Jumping ahead to the second quarter, the Spartans had a 7-point lead, and all the momentum was starting to shift in their favor. Well, that's when I connected with my guy Seth on the go route for a 60-yard touchdown, tying the game all even at 14. The third quarter came and the game was still extremely close. We had a 3-point lead and excellent field position with the great shot at increasing the lead. I had my receiver wide open across the middle of the field, but I put way too much touch on the ball and the defense ended up knocking it down. So we just ended up settling for a field goal. Fourth quarter with just over 2 minutes left in the game, it was still way too close for comfort. We needed at least another touchdown to officially pull away with the victory. I did my part scrambling for a first down on 3rd and 6, and then we put the ball into KJ's hands and he go almost completely untouched for a touchdown. He single-handedly carried us all game, so it was only right he put the final touches on our victory. Back at home and out of the snow, we be hosting Northwestern. Now, I'll be real, we weren't taking this team very seriously. They weren't having the best season and they didn't have much to play for. Now, of course, we knew they were still dangerous, but it was kind of hard to get up for these guys. Although we weren't the most excited about playing the Wildcats, we still went out there and handled our business. Now, I can tell you right now that this game wasn't close whatsoever. We jumped out to a very early lead and never looked back. KJ was having the same dominant performance that we had grown accustomed to, and of course, I went out there and did my thing. We were really firing on all cylinders, and before you knew it, the score was 14-0 and the Wildcats had no answer. At this point of the season, we were 5-1, ranked inside the top 25 teams in the nation with no signs of looking back. I had shown on several different occasions my ability to not only protect the lead, but also fight back from behind to win games. My passing touchdowns were high and my interceptions were low. I also developed into a true dual threat quarterback, meaning I could hurt you both on the ground or through the air, but for some reason there still seemed to be very little interest surrounding my name. Now, I was hearing through the grapevine that it was due to my attitude, but honestly, I ain't even care. I knew if I kept playing like this and we kept winning, the scouts would have no choice but to pay attention. Back at home, the snow had finally found its way to Iowa, and we'd be hosting our rivals, the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, we beat this team last year in our rivalry showdown, so I knew they'd be back seeking revenge. They came out extremely aggressive and possessed the ball for the majority of the first quarter. They jumped out to an early 7-point lead, and it was clear they were here to play. On 2nd and 3, with all my receivers covered downfield, I scrambled outside of the pocket, and I had like 30 yards of daylight in front of me. With good up the field blocking, I ran into the end zone completely untouched, tying the game at 7 going into the second quarter. Well, that tie didn't last very long as the Badgers immediately scored against our defense, regaining the lead. We didn't panic because this was nothing new. We came into this game expecting for it to be a shootout, and well, that's exactly what it was shaping up to be. 1st and 17, I was being chased down by the defenders, but I made a huge connection to my receiver downfield. As you can see, the chemistry between us was at an all-time high. On the very next play, 1st and goal, I keep the ball on the option and run into the end zone, tying the game up before halftime. Coming out in the second half, we take possession first, and I just knew if we were able to go down and score on our first drive, all the pressure would be on the Badgers to try to answer. Now, I gotta be honest, due to the weather, I was a little bit hesitant to try to throw the ball downfield. Even when I'd have an open receiver, I'd look him off and instead try to make a play with my feet. Well, that hesitation led to me taking a sack on 3rd and goal. I didn't even really let the play develop before trying to escape the pocket. We'd take the field goal and go up by 3 points. But as expected, Wisconsin tied the game at 17-all and gave us the ball right back to start the fourth quarter. 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter with the ball on the 25-yard line. Dropping back in the pocket, I'd hit my guy Nico on the comeback route, moving us up to the 7th-yard line. Then on 1st and goal, I completely juked the corner out of his shoes and run in for a touchdown, taking a 7-point lead with just over a minute left in regulation. Our defense stood strong and forced the Badgers to turn over the ball, officially sealing the deal and giving us the victory at home, knocking off yet another rival this season. We were on the road again in beautiful Southern California, taking on the UCLA Bruins. Now, we had moved up to the 12th ranked team in the country, and the buzz surrounding our program was at an all-time high. If I'm being honest, I think the buzz was even higher than it was before our first loss, but I don't know. We started off this game a bit shaky. Our first drive was a 3-and-out, and the Bruins were able to capitalize, going up by 7 on the scoreboard. Now, we needed to have a good performance because a win here could mean us cracking back into the top 10 teams in the nation. But look, other than that first drive, we seemed to be firing on all cylinders, moving the ball up the field with ease. Then we were finally able to crack the scoreboard with the touchdown as I found my fullback, of all people, wide open in the end zone. The Bruins answered right back with the touchdown of their own, and it looked like yet again we were in for another back and forth game. But suddenly there was a shift. On our next drive, we started off really well, but those small repeated mistakes I keep mentioning would come back to bite us. We picked up a holding call on the first down, and well, that first down quickly turned into a long 3rd and 17, which then turned into a 3-and-out, giving possession right back to the dangerous UCLA offense. Man, it was only downhill from there. The Bruins jumped out to an 18-point lead, and on our next possession, I throw an interception, giving them excellent field position, making it easy for them to score again. Look, we definitely didn't just roll over. I mean, we did what we could and tried our best to fight our way back into the game. I put together a string of completions to move the ball up the field. We started to have great success on the ground and through the air. A few big plays got us down right outside the end zone when I connect with my receiver over the top of the defense for 6. But in the end, it would be way too little, way too late. The Bruins handed us our second loss of the season, sending us packing with a 12-point victory at home. The next game, we'd be on the road taking on a very unfamiliar opponent, the Maryland Terrapins. Now, obviously, we were coming off our second loss of the season, so that pretty much meant our chances of playing for a national championship were gone. But the conference championship was still at stake, so we still had a lot to play for. This game would start off rather unique as Maryland jumped out to a 14-0 lead and we weren't able to score at all during the first quarter. Coming out in the second quarter though, it was a different story. We finally got our wheels moving upfield and worked the ball down to the 9-yard line where I would connect with my guy Alex for the first touchdown of the game. Our defense stopped the Terrapins in their tracks, putting the ball into our hands. Standing tall in the pocket, I threw an absolute laser to my boy KJ, who was lined up as a slot receiver. With just under 30 seconds left in the first half, I wanted to make sure we were able to tie the game before halftime. Feeling the pressure of the Maryland defense, I was able to scramble out of the pocket and beat the DN upfield for a touchdown, tying the game. 14-all to start the second half, it was pretty much anyone's game to take. Now, although we were able to score before halftime, you could still feel that the momentum was on Maryland's side. But of course, we didn't panic. We just stuck to our game plan, running a balanced offense and taking shots upfield, but only when it made sense. My boy KJ was having a hell of a game, and honestly, it started to look like he'd definitely be a first or second round pick this year. We had become a very dangerous 1-2 punch, so I was hoping my name got called with his come draft time. But look, we jumped out to a 7-point lead, but there was still a lot of time left on the clock. Like I always say, the game was still way too close to get comfortable. With about 2 minutes left in the third quarter, I'd take one of those shots downfield and connect it with my boy Sims up the sideline. On the very next play, wide open over the middle, I found my boy Nico for a touchdown, increasing our lead to 14 after the field goal. Look, we went on to beat this very tough Maryland team on the road by 10 points. In what would be my last game ever as a college athlete, we'd be back at home taking on our rivals, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, being that this was my last college game, it was only right that the weather was horrible and the temperatures were freezing. Even with all that though, the beautiful Iowa fans still showed up and were louder than ever. It was hard to believe I'd never wear that Iowa uniform again or play in Kinnick Stadium again. The feeling was bittersweet. I mean, I was happy to graduate and go on to the pros, but damn man, that place had really become my second home. But look, there was still work that needed to be done. Not only was this a rivalry game, but the Big Ten championship was on the line, and it wasn't no way I was ending my college career losing to our rivals at home. Nah, it just wasn't happening. Yet again, we found ourselves in another shootout, but we all knew coming in that this one would be closely contested all the way to the end of the game. So trust me, we were well prepared for whatever the Cornhuskers threw at us. We jumped out to a 4-point lead and got possession of the ball back with just over a minute and a half left before halftime. By now, yeah, y'all should already know what I was on. I was looking to put another touchdown on the scoreboard before the end of the first half. I was able to work the ball downfield to right outside the red zone, and then on 3rd and 2nd, I felt like I could have easily ran for the first down, but I already had my mindset on a touchdown, so I ended up overthrowing my receiver and the ball floated out of bounds, so we ended up just settling for the field goal. Nebraska started off the second half with the ball, but they weren't able to score, so we take over possession with the 4-point lead. Before taking the field, coach put us all into the huddle and told us a touchdown on this drive could quite possibly lead to us winning the game, so I had to go ahead to take open shots down the field. So that's exactly what I did, connecting with my wideout for a huge 30-yard gain. On 3rd and 4, I was scanning the field, looking for a target when the pocket would collapse, and unfortunately I'd take a sack. This would be yet another red zone error on my behalf, but we were still in pretty good shape as we settled for the field goal. On the final drive of my college football career, we had a 4-point lead and all we needed were 2 first downs to be able to run the clock out and secure the victory. Dropping back in the pocket with all my receivers covered up field, I'd scramble and pick up a huge first down, securing us the victory at home. We went on to not only win the game, but we also won the Big Ten Conference Championship. After all the late nights and early mornings, the 6 a.m. training sessions, the late night film sessions, the bumps and the bruises and the wins and the losses, the NFL draft came and for whatever the reason may have been, my name wasn't called. My agent said he talked to a few teams that may be interested in bringing me in as an undrafted free agent, or he said maybe we can even explore a few UFL options, but I don't know. For right now, man, I'm cool on everything. My goal since picking up a football was to get drafted. Now that didn't happen, I'm not even sure if I want to do this anymore. Of course, I could just be being dramatic since the whole situation is fresh, but who knows? I've been playing this game since I was a kid. Maybe it's time to hang up my cleats and go find a job or something.